Well, hello, it's Danny Deals here. Thank you for tuning in to Un Poco Mas, the show where we give you just a little bit more. It is May 23rd. It is 9:43 a.m. out here on the Pacific Coast in beautiful, rainy Los Angeles today. Pushing 1 o'clock out in NYC. Hope it's a great day wherever you are. Perhaps you're on your lunch break. Perhaps you're asleep and don't know about this video as yet, but you will discover it and be just overjoyed and elated that Danny Deals is making another SoFi video, ticker symbol SOFI. You may ask, Danny Deals, why are you bringing us these boring SoFi updates so frequently on a daily basis? And the reason I'm doing that is because I believe the entire media analyst ecosystem has intentionally created a false narrative around SoFi that SoFi is in big trouble, that SoFi is a penny stock, that SoFi is about to do a reverse split, that SoFi eminently needs to raise money, that SoFi has to change their accounting structure. And before it was, oh, SoFi is going to get their bank charter revoked because they're doing crypto. And SoFi, it's like there's an endless FUD with SoFi, and there's just completely coincidentally, there's been a huge short on SoFi that has only intensified dramatically since their last earnings. And that, people are like, oh, there's a lot of problems. People are selling off SoFi. The insider sell off, this huge insider sell off in SoFi is a myth. It's made up. One or two people did sell a portion of their holdings, which again is prudent if you have a huge percentage of your net worth in one stock, even if you happen to work there. Those types of sales are to be expected. Nodo keeps buying. The insider share of the company is still very solid. There are still a lot of institutions in the stock, and retail is not dumping the stock. What's happening is the stock has been shorted. Since earnings, this was completely set up. There was a short attack that was pre planned. There was a little pump in the sixes, and then the stock just got destroyed. Um, just to take a look at the short interest, I'm going to zoom out here just not to run afoul of any restrictions on the data, but just taking a look at the live short interest. Thus far today, the borrowed change is another 5 million shares. There's been about 1.5 million shares returned, 6.5 million shares borrowed. The live short interest is around 120 million shares. And if you take a look in just the last 7 days, the shares on loan have gone from 224 million to 238 million. So in the last 7 days of trading, um, they've shorted there's on loan an additional 14 million shares. So if you look at the volume on a day like today, there's 22 million shares that have traded so far and 5.5 million new net shares short. So the only people actually trading the stock are buying, or only investors, they're only buying. Nobody is dumping down here. Retail was not dumping down in the fours. The short attacks, I guess you could say they work because they're driving some weak hands out of the stock and stopping some people out. But for the most part, it's just a lot of churn and a lot of BS, and retail investors aren't leaving the stock. The reason they do this type of short activity with good companies that aren't in trouble is to drive the price down so the institutions can accumulate shares low and force retail to sell to them at a loss or to let them cover their short at a loss. Um, and that's how institutions take money from retail investors. But recently, with the whole diamond hands, a lot of retail investors are a bit more savvy and they're just not setting these stupid stop losses and they're not dumping on the fear. As we speak, they are dumping. Looks like just a big move there to the downside. We were just up about 4%, and stock was just up almost to 550 and then dumped all the way down to 532 in the course of a few minutes. But again, that's just SoFi. There wasn't a huge amount of volume. In fact, I bet if you take a look at this, um, okay, 285,000 shares dumped. Yeah, they're. I would have to say they're reshorting here because, again, 5.5 million new net shares short today, showing up at least on the live short interest on the sites that I look at, and I just don't believe retail's dumping the stock here. But I could be wrong. I just don't see it. They continue to short the stock. There's a huge amount of the free float on loan, and days to cover have gotten longer. Cost to borrow is still not that high because there's definitely a lot of shares on the market. But there's a few new articles out in terms of SoFi. Of course, on the Motley Fool, they constantly run articles on the SoFi stock. A couple you could take a look at is Bull versus Bear by Neil Patel. That's 23rd. This is actually not a bad article. It makes some good arguments on the bear side as to why, it could be problematic how SoFi is pricing some of their loans on their balance sheet, and they might be a little bit optimistic. I do believe, the shorts are holding SoFi down desperately at these levels. And a stock like Upstart just ran, and it was because essentially because a major company basically came in and said they're going to purchase Upstart's loans for the foreseeable future. Um, I forget the name of that company. I think it was um, Castle Financial or something like that. But um, I don't see it. I don't see it here on Yahoo Finance. But in any case, basically the news was, hey, they have an agreement that there's a whatever loans Upstart generates, they are going to purchase. Yeah, it was on Monday. It was real that Upstart investment management company Castle Lake reached a purchase agreement for Castle Lake to acquire as much as 4 billion of consumer installment loans from Upstart. In less than 1 week, Upstart's already significant funding prediction was easily reached and surpassed. Consider the company specifically noted there are multiple funding agreements being worked on. It is reasonable. And listen, I don't have any problem with Upstart. If you want to buy Upstart, I'm not one of these, you know, I think it's an inferior company to SoFi over the long run. I think their loans are of lower quality. I think their business model is not as diversified. And, but they probably make a lot of margin because the interest rates are very high on these loans. And in good times, that works out great. But the analysts, the bearish analysts, are saying in terms of SoFi, like, hey, nobody's going to want to buy their loans um, because there's going to be too many defaults and they're personal unsecured loans. So people aren't going to want to buy those loans, and SoFi is going to be stuck holding them to maturation, and then they're going to have to take write downs and change their accounting system. How does that make any sense? Like, if Upstart has this huge demand for their loans, the analysts are basically making the assumption that because they didn't sell any loans in the first quarter of 2023, that there was no market to sell those loans. I've contended, as did touchdown Danny Dolev. I've contended that the reason they're holding those loans is because they're making more money collecting the interest than they would selling them off, so they can collect that high interest for the next quarter or two, and then as rates start to come down, they can sell off the loans to institutional investors. And the fact that there's demand for Upstart's loans when SoFi has customers with better credit, larger loans, longer duration loans, better jobs, better income. The SoFi, I guarantee you, I haven't even, I haven't looked at this in detail, but I absolutely guarantee you that the SoFi borrower has better financials all the way across the board, more reliable, far less defaults than the Upstart borrower. I guarantee you that. And if anybody can prove me wrong on that, you know, I'd be willing to send you a set of low quality Chinese steak knives from Amazon. Um, In any case, steakhouse style guys with the big handles, big blades, but cheap, so they immediately rust and tarnish. But in any case, guys, that's the SoFi stock. Just took a big hit down to 534, and looks like regained a little bit of traction there. The market just took a big dump. I'm not exactly sure why, but sort of followed the Nasdaq down on that nosedive, and then gonna pop back up. Probably just stopping out idiots and making a few moves, but retail earnings, I think there were a couple disappointing ones. I saw Foot Locker yesterday. Boy, just fell off a cliff. So the economy is definitely starting to show weakness. And again, that's the whole idea of raising these interest rates is they want to slow down the economy and get inflation under control. And of course, inflation, lags behind. You can't see it right away. So did they go too far? I don't think so. I think, inflation was running rampant because the government was just printing money through COVID like drunken sailors. Um, I read a statistic that 40% of the national debt was added during the Trump administration. It's hard for me to believe, but COVID was an extraordinary time, and but now we need to institute some fiscal discipline. Getting inflation under control is a first step. I would love to see us getting our debt under control, but God knows that's never going to happen. Hopefully, we can at least raise the debt ceiling, get some agreement there, and avert a fiscal calamity. But as far as the SoFi stock goes, I think a lot of the FUD is pure hype, and I think the stock is actually in pretty good shape if you look at the numbers. And I think the whole brouhaha is that they're not going to be able to sell their loans, and there's going to be a lot of defaults, and they're going to have to put in a lot of reserves and take a lot of losses on those loans. And I just don't believe there's any evidence to support that conclusion. But who am I? Nobody. Look at the numbers, draw your own conclusions, and decide if the SoFi stock is a buy, sell, or hold in your book. My name is Danny Deals for executive producer Hurricane Lopez and supervising producer Stock Karen. We would like to thank you for watching Un Poco Mas. Again, it's Tuesday, May 23rd, 2023. Time is almost 10 a.m. out here on the West Coast. Guys, just want to update you one more time on the live short interest, just so you know what's going on with the stock and why it is moving, how it's moving. Shares have been returned a little bit here. And so the borrowed change is about 4.3 million today, 6.6 borrowed and 2.24 returned. So guys, the shorts are not letting go of SoFi. They are shorting more shares today, and that's what's happening with the stock. Insiders aren't dumping the stock. That's not why it's going down. Institutions, retail is not dumping the stock. Other financial companies are, they basically hate SoFi. They've been shorting SoFi from the beginning. They refuse to acknowledge that SoFi has made a successful pivot from a largely a student loan company to a lender that does all kinds of other things. And yes, there are a lot of personal loans on their books right now, but they are extremely high quality personal loans. And as I said, if there's this huge demand for Upstart loans, there's certainly going to be plenty of demand for SoFi's loans, at least in this guy's opinion, which, that and 50 cents would have gotten you a cup of coffee in 1982. I appreciate you guys watching. That's a SoFi stock. I'll keep my eye on it, and I will bring you updates more often than you'd even like and you can stand. Thanks a lot. It's Danny Deals.